Bush and Obama years, and calling out those things regardless of which administration is in power, and then Russiagate kind of hits and it breaks its brain.
I think that's right. I mean,
Yeah, so hello again. I'm listening to another Citations Needed podcast. Recently, I've stopped my RSS feed and I've unsubscribed to a lot of things because I'm kind of over my needing to know what's going on all the time. And there's several journalists that I like that seem to put the work in. I don't mind so much their ideological bent as much as their reporting is good and that they provide a lot of resources to look into so that you can decide for yourself where it makes sense and where it doesn't. And maybe some of these things are important for me to know for some weird reason. I've noticed that, no matter what you do or share anywhere, on any platform, it's not going to make any difference because we're not in charge of anything. So people talk about local democratic action, doing things on a local level, but still you need funding, you need lots of people to commit and volunteer, and you're just not going to get that these days. And people are looking at social media and looking at all these platforms all the time, auditing the conversation. And so that takes up a lot of their time, and it's confusing, and there are mixed messages and different people you can follow. And so, it probably would be a better use of your time to do a little less of that, a little more of reading books. But, we want to know what's going on. We want to hear from people, so we do that. Obviously, it would be a better use of your time if you got together with people at some forum or location in your town and had these deep conversations. But then who wants to go to that? Does anybody actually want to attend something like that? I've tried it here, but people don't seem that interested. So maybe a couple of people show up who are good friends of mine and just are showing up just because they're friends of mine. But it's not like everybody in the town wants to talk about issues, politics, or what's going on, or what we might want to do to prepare for what's coming, like that kind of thing. We tend to kick the can down the road and just wait and see and react. And the plans we do make or the prepping that we do is many times the wrong thing. It's not really going to help when the shit hits the fan. Well, we think it might. Obviously, people make gardens in their backyard or something like that, and that's good. And maybe if you had some chickens in the backyard, you wouldn't have to worry about eggs too much. But then you have swine flu and regulations that come up due to that, and so it becomes harder to have your own chickens. I don't know. Different suburbs will vary in terms of their regulation and rules and so on. Where I live, people can have chickens and stuff. But, the weirdness in the Trump thing is so strange because there's so many contradictions in what's going on. And you try to drill down and try to find the ideological crux of the whole program, and it's not that easy to uncover. Some people do articulate things fairly well, but that requires a lot of work to read their stuff and try to understand the background information, update your priors, as it were, and figure out, where they're coming from. And a lot of it's coded, so it's even more difficult to figure out because you might not be used to their perspective or their language, their rhetoric. So I was listening to Citations Needed, which is a fun podcast that I trust.
As far as Glenn and Matt go, I think this was a precipitating event for them, and I think that it was something that made both of them kind of be done. But
so anyway, I'm not going to leave that on. Citations Needed kind of reviews the media, and it's hard to say whether people come from the left or not anymore, because whatever the mainstream centrist left has been pushed to the right. And then you have to redefine the right, alt-right, new right, what right, whatever. But generally speaking, in history, it has to do with people with money and power control those who don't have money and power. And, for thousands of years, money and power allowed you to have soldiers, and you could go and beat up your neighbor over stuff. Like a lot of these wars in Europe back in the olden days, medieval times, one king could insult another king, and then there would be, got to get some soldiers, got to go out and do some stuff. Anyway, those business models and models of warfare have changed over time. But it's nice to have some media critique that's not totally batshite crazy or extreme, where people are thinking things through and having interesting guests on. So this one's called News Brief, Silicon Valley Patronage, How to Subtly Drift Right, and the New Conservative Media Ecosystem. When I was talking to Curtis Yarvin in Portugal, he kept talking about how everything's left and you can't get out of the left-wing media ecosystem or milieu or a zeitgeist, whatever. Even if you tried, so one of the things you have to do is you have to take that over. And Substack and Medium and a lot of these platforms have been funded by right-wing tech billionaires, Silicon Valley people. And they, people who get ahead, who do well on these platforms generally just through osmosis or through intuition or just understanding that if I talk about this particular thing in a certain way, I'll get more views, more subscribers, and so on. And then there's the whole feedback loops and the audience capture, so one thing feeds back to another, and then there's herd mentality, the stupidness of the crowd, and bandwagon effect, and all that kind of thing. So people start, I should look into this now, and more people go, and then they see there's 200 likes on this thing, so I better read it, and so on. A lot of times the people I read, they're not very popular. One of the reasons is that their articles are longer than usual, and they have a broader perspective, or they're looking at things from more than one angle. They might have some pet peeves or some things that particularly annoy or irk them, and they do repeatedly talk about those things, but they have a broader mission in terms of what they want to write and report on and how they want to do it. And so it's for a lot of people, I think they just don't know where they're coming from. Is this guy a liberal or a libertarian or a alt-right or fascist? I just can't tell, And it can be very mysterious and hard to figure out what you're reading, and a lot of times with complicated journalism that's referring to a lot of things, you need some background knowledge in these different areas of politics, economics, history, sociology, psychology, whatever the heck seeps into it. And if you don't have that, it can seem very confusing and hard to translate and understand, comprehend. So it's difficult. I understand that. So I think being online and battered around with the infotainment fire hose is brutal and not very helpful, and it's going to make us more confused, basically. A few of us will be able to, sift our way through and figure things out via the, violent info fire hose, but a lot of us are just going to get sick of it and say, I unsubscribe, I don't pay attention anymore. It's all crazy to me. And so we will just be buffeted about by the whims of these egomaniacal, hypersensitive, narcissistic, dark tetrad, billionaires who just don't really give a fuck or know shit. But they know they have the money to do what they want to do, damn it, and fuck everybody else. I was joking online that, all these federal employees, they lay off 10,000. They can retrain to learn how to build ex machina robots. And then once they've served their purpose and they're no longer needed because the robots can build the robots, then of course you can upload your soul onto the metaverse and be done with you. Then you can rewild the United States and have all these federal game parks where the Trump boys and Mark Zuckerberg, who's only going to eat meat that he kills, can go hunting. You can have all kinds of exotic bush meat and whatever. What does a giraffe taste like? And it'll be beautiful. The country club will be gorgeous. There'll be like 5 billion or 6 billion less people on the planet or something like that. Obviously, Overshoot's going to sort that out, not necessarily a conspiracy. And you still have Russia and Africa and India and China to deal with, and they're going to do things their own way. They have agency, they have power, they can make decisions and do stuff whether you like it or not. And so whether they make mistakes or whether they're good or bad or whatever from your point of view doesn't really matter. They exist and they want to do things their way. Hold the mayo, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us. So there's a few people commenting on the media sphere, Silicon Valley and the media sphere in general, and Citations Needed is one of them. And like I said before, for what it's worth, I post this stuff at Globe Hackers Facebook page. So if you're curious, or my site has some links, you can look at these things and at the end of the day get tired of them the same way I do, because there are agendas and we're forced to have these agendas because we have to make a living. So if I'm not a PR guy for green solutions, greenwashing everything and pretending like there isn't a stocks and flows, long-term energy and materials issue with building all the new green tech and the new green grids and the new whatever, that they don't exist, and the environmental externalities that they produce don't exist. It's by some miracle, we'll have enough, and ephemeralization and technology will make a world of abundance where we don't run out of anything ever. And by the time we do run out of something, we'll be a multi-planet species. It's all vaporware, in my opinion, because we do have issues with Overshoot, and we have to address those on a socioeconomic and cultural level before we can solve any of these problems. And then you invest in solutions once you understand how the system's going to be and structured, and how you're going to live together in peace on the planet so that you can collaborate across nation states and cultures and so on. Instead, all these right-wing libertarian maniacs think that they're all going to have their own special little intentional communities where they can be the best of all possible people in the universe. So this article, news brief, we interview author Ian Higgins about his new book, Owned: How Tech Billionaires on the Right Bought the Loudest Voices on the Left. So he's talking about Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, people like that, and discuss the new model of tech billionaire funding and detail how some of the biggest names in left media became MAGA aligned, Tucker boosting petty score settlers. And, I could be interested in some of the things Trump clique is doing just because I personally think it's right, but there's so much contradiction. Like, I want the war in Ukraine, which in my opinion should never have happened, to end. I'm not a fan of Democrats or Republicans. I just want the war to end because I don't like wars. I think it's absurdly ridiculous to imagine that they're going to find the money and investment and time and energy and everything to turn Gaza into another Dubai. It's not going to happen. It's fantasy, it's vaporware, it's bullshit. But of course, in Trump's mind, I'm sure he fantasizes about it and thinks he could do it because he's that good. And so somehow, they overestimate their intelligence and abilities to do things. I built a building once in Manhattan. I can do anything. And it's other people's money, other people's labor, other people's innovations, other people's coding, other people's labor. It's just never their shit. They know how to play the financial game and the influence game. They're con men, pure and simple, confidence people. And so confidence con artists. And it works, make friends and influence people and whatever. So we all just kind of traipse along, hoping that AI is going to make all the difference in the world. A lot of people are debunking the capabilities of these AI tools, which can be useful, but they're not miraculous by any stretch, or AGI by any stretch. And they never will be. Why is that? Because these NVIDIA chips and all these data centers are incredibly material and energy-intensive endeavors that require constant inputs of materials and energy and money. And these are just not profitable business models. They don't make money except in markets. Get a market maker, go public, sell stock, and play that game. They can siphon off money that goes to the top. A lot of these firms like Tesla, they've never paid dividends to investors ever. So it's buy low, sell high, good luck, or go into index funds and other safer investments for the plebs and proles. But for the players, they can flash trade. They can do all kinds of things to pump and dump and create Ponzi schemes and whatnot that make them wildly rich, and they're too big to fail. So all these contradictions, right? NATO, I'm not a big fan of it because I don't think we should be spending any money on military anything. We should be doing a whole bunch of diplomacy and understanding one another. And I'm sorry, I'm a fucking wet noodle, tree-hugging piece of shit. Okay, fine. But honestly, man, all the energy going into this warfare stuff could be redirected towards better things. And the ecological damage, the pollution, the materials wasted on these wars is phenomenal now, and the money and the financing that goes into it. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of lives lost for nothing, because what goes around comes around. It's not like you're going to settle down, things are going to be better after this war. Now Europeans, who have been really good at killing one another for centuries, for thousands of years, are killing each other again in Ukraine. But they're Slavic, so they're not pure white. They're kind of Slavic white, so we don't, in the West, the real West, care about them that much. That's Eurasia. So we don't care if Russians and Ukrainians die in mass fighting over cultural and border disputes and whatnot. And, the business model for Uncle Sam is just to make money through war. And that's about it. What value does Uncle Sam give the world? Taylor Swift? Some NFL games in Germany and the UK and, whatever. Some entertainment, some streaming services. I mean, what do you really get from it all? I mean, really confused, like, am I woke? Do I need a pronoun? Should I be painting walls and tagging subways? It's amazing when you go to some of these countries with the dictators and you notice the subways are clean, and things are working, and you're like, but these people are fascist dictators. What's wrong with these human beings? They're not free. They don't have whatever. Democracy is a complex thing, and you actually have to participate in a democracy. You can't sit on the sidelines. You need to engage with politics, engage with policymakers and influencers and organizers in your community to get things done. You can't just go and vote every 2 years or 4 years and expect things to go your way. If you don't want to participate in democracy, then what good is it to you? because somebody else is buying favor, currying favor with money. And it's not helping you at all. So it's not that I am anti-democratic. Democracy is good, but is it like a kind of democracy you might see in anarcho-syndicalism or something like that, or small-scale democracy that you might find in Athens for the right class of people? In a world where we don't need slave labor anymore, we can use robots. Maybe more of the right kind of people could be cool. And also education. It's like they're going to gut education, and so you're going to be even less capable of figuring out what's what. And they're going to encourage your homeschooling or go online and learn from these right-wing platforms what to think. And you need to be civic-minded. You have to understand civics and politics. And you have to understand history and sociology to participate in democracy. You can't be stupid. You might think you're democratic because you're subscribed to the right platforms or something, and you get to type something that nobody's going to see or care about, but you're not actually having any influence. Well, if the policies work for you and you're like, well, my taxes went down on my business and I got better financing for my truck, I'm happy right now. I get it. That's nice. You get a little something, a little something on the side. Like in Taiwan, they used to pay people for votes. They just go around and pay people to vote one way or another. Democracy could be a good thing, but at this scale, it's really hard to do it without a really well-educated populace. You need people who have an opportunity to get a good education. A good education means understanding how to think, how to be creative, how to speak, how to communicate, and how to collaborate, and understanding the background of things, how things work, whether it's engineering or science, STEM type stuff, or whether it's the humanities. Who is Aristotle? Who was Heidegger? Why do they matter? Why should I care about Adam Smith or whatever? And how did these people influence things as they developed? And what is energy as opposed to the, a mysterious spiritual goop that many people call energy? What is energy? What is work? And so on and so forth. And can we understand this? And then you won't have flat earthers because they'll know the basics of gravity, theory of gravity, and so on. But because we don't want people to be educated, they can fall back on religion and magical thinking because it's easy. Somebody just tells you what to believe, tells you how to interpret this passage in the Bible, and you're all done. You're finished. You're good. You don't have to worry anymore. And if somebody disagrees with you, you can write them off and say they're evil, satanic, communist, whatever derogatory term you want to use for them, and blow them off. They don't matter. They're just fucking commies, And you don't know anything. And I think a lot of these billionaires are just that dumb, actually. They want to believe things that help them achieve what they want to achieve. It has nothing to do with you. So I think it's really good to have a few sources of information that you know and trust, to keep challenging yourself, to keep leveling up your understanding of how things work, your background knowledge across domains of curiosity, reading books, and communicating and collaborating with people locally, and understanding that the whole thing, the vaporware of AI, the vaporware of rockets to Mars, the vaporware of, electric cars. I mean, electric cars, okay. Modernized energy grid, yes, of course, all this stuff. But you have to understand the constraints, the absolute limitations from a material and energy perspective, and of course the economics behind it. How real is the economics? I mean, a central bank can keep printing money and you can keep playing these games, but at some point, the real cost is the materials used, the energy lost. It's all kind of thermodynamics. And you get to a point where all this credit, all this fake money that you've been using to think about Nazi Germany. They're broke, they're poor, Weimar Germany. Then suddenly they're manufacturing the best tanks in the world and rockets that they can shoot at London during the Blitz. Where did they get the money? I mean, yeah, you can look at the economics of big corporations doing business with Germany during the build-up to World War II and all that kind of background. But at the end of the day, they just decided they were going to use their energy and materials for that purpose, build up, and then start conquering things so that they could take stuff from other places to keep building. It's like a computer game, a board game. I need some oil, I need some lead, I need some steel. How do I get the steel factory? Well, you can't build all the capacity in the United States of America and maintain the kind of growth economy that you've become so so accustomed to. So what's going to happen is you're going to find out the limitations, right? I got to keep blowing up mountains to get the coal to make the steel. Coking coal, specialized coal, not just any coal, not just clean coal, but all kinds of different types. And it's the same thing with petrochemicals and different grades of fuel, flight fuel and different kinds of crude oil and diesel fuel and on and on and on. Where are you going to get it? Where are all these copper mines going to be? And who loses when I start digging up the copper? What gets destroyed? What gets wrecked? The entropy of it. There are a lot of questions here we don't want to face, we don't want to ask. So you're going to fire all these federal workers. Oh, that's great, efficiency. It's not about efficiency. It's about redirecting the funds and the resources towards a minority of people who don't give a fuck about you. And once these guys lose their job, where are they going to go work? Amazon warehouse? Are they going to go to a Chili's restaurant near you? Are these bureaucrats who have skills and abilities and experience are going to be gone, and you're going to literally be taken care of by a chatbot? If you knew anything about how LLMs work, that would scare the heck out of you. What could go wrong? The AIs will sort it out. And Larry Ellison and all these billionaires come up and they say, we're going to have this moonshot. It's going to be great. You won't have to worry about a thing. Well, what the heck are you going to do? So you're getting conned, you're getting fooled, you're getting had, you're getting fleeced, and you don't know it. And all of it just confuses you. It's a bummer. I get it. I watch ABC News once in a while, and it's crazy. It's like, really? Are people in the States watching this? Are they noticing anything funny happening? It's like more air crashes and more crazy storms and weather whiplash and all these bizarre things going on. And it just seems so weird. I get it. News has to be exciting, and it has to be emotional, and it has to get your attention, and it has to be outrageous. Otherwise, you won't watch. But it just seems like the mundane stuff that they report on is all kind of disastrous or portends to be disastrous. And then they'll have a little segment at the end, America's strong. And they'll say, somebody, lifted a bear with their bare hands and saved a baby in Yellowstone Park or something like that. Some silly little tabloid journalistic fluff at the end of the newscast. I don't know. I think it's all pretty absurd. But I don't think that the people that you're putting your faith in really know what they're doing that much. They have an agenda, and they dislike certain people, and they point fingers, and they other people, and they scapegoat people and all that kind of stuff. It's the easiest thing to do to get your approval and commitment and attention. But at the end of the day, it doesn't solve the problem. The problems have deeper origins. They're more complex than you think. and they require really serious focus and attention and expertise to sort out. It's not that you're like, I'm just going to outsource the world to experts. What's wrong with expertise? I mean, you would want to have an expert do something for you if you could afford it, rather than somebody who's just faking it, throwing shit at the wall. So it's going to be a rough bit of time, and I think deep down inside a lot of these players, what I call players of the great game, the people who have power and influence and money, don't know what they're doing, but they have an intuition. So Mark Zuckerberg buys part of Kauai in Hawaii and builds bunkers and has his gated, big ranch, and because he's prepping, he's got the money for it. He's going to downplay it, but all of them have this, and they're all discussing private militias and how to motivate them and incentivize them and maintain their loyalty and all this stuff. Everything fragments, becomes very, very balkanized. Meanwhile, all this stuff in Europe, you're just like, is it just going to be inevitable that the not the Balkans, but the Baltic region has to go to war now? Vilifying Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin doesn't really help. They're going to do what they're going to do. The Russiagate extremism or not, or whatever. You can't stop these other countries from doing what they want to do. Yeah, everybody, unfortunately, isn't going to be a particular kind of an American. You have all these sectarian battles between religions and whatnot. People are sectarian in the United States. They don't agree with each other. There isn't like the perfect American. And yet we think that, the rest of the world just wants our oligarchs and business people to come in and run their countries. It's like, we're going to privatize everything, and then we're going to outsource all the upper management, to people in the United States, because we're the city on the hill. Other people in the world don't like that. They figure they can have their own people do it. If you're a poor country and you just don't have the power for that, that's okay. You just get on with it. In Portugal, we just get on with it. It's not like we're going to have a big seat at the table. It's like people are just scared to death of what Portugal's going to do next. We don't notice these small countries, but there are countries like Brazil and other places around the world that are very important to the world because of the Amazon. We have oceans that cover most of the planet, and the health of those oceans is much more important than what Elon Musk thinks. Because at the end of the day, that system goes down, we all go down. We go down pretty quick. And a lot of these billionaires also believe that somehow technologically they're going to be able to live forever. And they think they're that important that they should live forever. And without them, the whole world would just go down the tubes. Without me, what's going to happen without me? And so they really do have faith that if they can garner enough resources and engineers and scientists and whatever, that they can figure out how to be immortal and to keep the game going. And they don't care that much. So, they put all these appointments in, lifestyle is important. So JFK Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr. thinks, we should eat right, sleep right, and blah, blah, blah. That's true. But what are you going to do to have a culture like that that's going to be health-oriented? Not for profit, just because it's better for you to be health-oriented. You're going to have a whole bunch of products that are healthy for you but cost a lot of money. And you're going to have lifestyles that give you diseases, and then you're going to have to spend money on the cures for them, or if your symptoms irritable bowel syndrome, take this, but there are side effects, so contact your doctor. Of course, that's common sense, but then you have the problem with vaccines, and then nobody understands virology, or they don't understand what it takes to make an antibiotic, they don't understand infectious disease, they don't, so it just gets politicized and it gets adopted by the culture wars, and then everybody's distracted again and stupid. So it's unfortunate, but I would definitely be more critical of what you think and follow and look at. And of course, you're going to do what you like to do, which is fine. But yeah, this is going to be a mess. So think of all the things that happened in the last 3 weeks. Trump's been president for a few weeks. It's not like the end of the world. The planet hasn't blown up yet. But think about all the mad, crazy shit and vandalism and is going to happen by the midterm elections that don't matter anymore because we have a uniparty, more or less, in the States. And then you've got 4 years of this. In the meantime, you have all the other problems just compounding, okay, like compound interest, compounding over time. And we're running out of time to solve these problems. And all we want to do is go to war with China and Russia and Iran and build a Dubai on the Mediterranean and Gaza, and while we ethnically cleanse and murder men, women, and children across Syria and Lebanon, and and tell little Egypt and little Jordan that they have to, carry their own weight, carry their water, man, do their part. And it's just so silly. I can't understand why people fall for it. I'm just guessing that most of us just don't have a broad enough knowledge and background information across domains to have any clue about what's really going on. So we just get sucked into a narrative, and then we become emotionally involved and connected to that narrative, and then that narrative becomes our identity, and then we become more and more emotionally involved with that narrative. And one thing you have to be if you're going to be a free thinker is able to change, hold more than one thought in your head at the same time, and able to say, I'm over it. I understand that now. It's not my thing. I'm moving on. Or, just grow with your opinions. Be able to change your opinion. And most of us feel more comfortable in a dogmatic space, where we think we already know everything. We know the truth, and so we don't have to shift or change. So there you have it. I mean, it is what it is, and what I always say is circumstances is the most effective and brutal dictator the world has ever known, and circumstances will dictate what you're doing in 2 years. And the madness isn't going to let up, because the seeds for the madness were planted hundreds of years ago, and they really started growing in the 19th century, and we're getting to the point in time where we're going to have to figure out what the true cost of all of this marvelous stuff is, the technology and everything else. And it has a cost, trust me. So anyway, thanks for listening. Click like, subscribe, share it share it if you want. Don't be embarrassed to share it. You can kind of share it in a down low way. And for what it's worth. And I'll see you next time. Take good care. Bulianti out.